Hi, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm Jeannie DeBon. If you don't know who I am, a movement therapist who specialises in hypermobility, EDS and chronic pain. And I thought I'd try these YouTube lives. It's my first one, so let's hope it goes well. I can't answer any comments while we're obviously going, but please do leave me comments, any feedback in the comment box, and I will reply later. So we're here today, we're going to do some movement, we're going to do a live class, and it's really nice to connect with people and do some movement together, because we could be all over the world, we don't know, where each other are, so welcome. And we're here today to talk about the truth of rib subluxations. So hands up who's ever had a rib subluxation, and hands up if it was extremely painful. Yeah, so I'm sure a lot of us, if you're hypermobile, were probably raising your hand at that moment. So I thought I'd do a little bit about, how we can stop these rib subluxations. Now, I'll be totally honest with you, the people that I work with, they never have rib subluxations after we start work. Because of my method of what we do in the body as a whole, but obviously the rib cage is impacted as well. So I like to use visualization and toys to help you sort of understand what's going on. So I'm just going to do a little bit of visualization with you so that when we move, you will have a better understanding of what we want to feel like, okay? So best thing I could think of showing was, if you think of this being your ribs, yeah, so these are your individual ribs, and these are the muscles obviously in between all the ribs, and then you've got muscles layering on top of those intercostal muscles, and you've got all your sort of cartilage and everything attaching the ribs, and all sorts going on around there. So lots of attachment points, yeah, on all of those ribs. And obviously your sternum here, you've got your ribs attaching here as well. And then obviously you've got your whole shoulder girdle sitting on top of the ribs. So if this was our ribs, and I'm going to use my band to show you, you don't need to do this unless you want to. So these are my ribs. This is my tissue that is wrapped around my ribs. Yeah, so think of it as layer upon layer. They're obviously going in multiple different directions. They're not really laid out like this. They're all kind of overlapping each other in multiple different directions, because obviously the spine moves in multiple different directions. So there's my ribs covered in all this connective tissue. Say this is my arm, yeah? So I've got, and we'll talk about why, but I've got a tight thoracic spine. So if I go to move my arm, let's bring this a little bit closer, and I start moving my arm, can you see what happens to the tissue around my ribs? Can you see how my fingers are getting pulled together? And you can see the tension in the band as I move my arm, yeah? Okay, because everything is connected. My arms are attached here and they come down into the back of my waist, okay? What if this was my legs? So here's my ribs and I'm walking. So now all that tissue at the bottom of the rib cage is also being pulled. Okay, so you can't escape the fact that everything is connected to everything else. So the first thing is we can't treat the rib cage in isolation. Okay, the other problem we have is that we tend to think of our rib cage, and it's part of the name, the rib cage, as a cage, which kind of implies something very fixed and solid, yeah, that doesn't move. And maybe we kind of feel that. We kind of feel our rib cages don't move. And instead of thinking of something that doesn't move, we want to think of it as something that's quite bouncy, so this is a little tensegrity model. And, the ribs are supposed to move in and out with this lovely tension between them. Yeah, so if this was, all the joints, as we move, there should be healthy movement here as you inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. But what happens if your rib cage has become like a cage and this no longer moves? So when you inhale, you're trying to inhale, but there's nowhere for this stuff to go because all that tissue has been wrapped on top of it and it's become very, very tight. So I'm trying to breathe, but I can't. I can't breathe properly because everything's very, very tight. So that's our first issue, is this thoracic tightness that so many of us have. Now, where does that come from? That can come from pain, for a start. If you're scared of moving, you're scared that it's going to hurt, we're going to start to lock that down and we're just not going to move, yeah? So, you know, we always kind of start to move like Barbie dolls, yeah? It's where the arms and the legs are kind of moving from the torso, but there's no integration. So I talk to my clients a lot about integration of the arms and the legs coming up into the spine, so that there is this connection. Because a lot of the time, we probably, I know a lot of my clients do, feel a little bit disjointed, you know, disconnected. We've got limbs and we've got this torso, but they're not really talking to each other. And so our shoulders are allowed to hang down, and then we might get shoulder subluxations. Everything's dragging on those ribs. And so we get this rigidity. Now, the other reason, of course, so we've got fear of pain, fear of movement, breathing pattern disorders, dysfunctions, whatever you want to call them. Very, very common. How do they happen? Fear, anxiety, stress, chronic stress. You know, living with a chronic illness can be stressful. So a lot of us adapt this sort of fixed bracing pattern. And it's a form of protection. You know, it's a subconscious thing that we do to protect ourselves. But then that's when that happens. And, you know, this isn't something that happens over a day. You know, if you did it for a day because you were a little bit anxious about going for an exam or a job interview, or, you know, something was going on and you were a bit tense, that's not really going to change anything. But if this happens year after year after year, and this tissue gets tighter and tighter and tighter around here, you can kind of see how I might get some rib subluxations. Yeah, so if this is my connective tissue, okay, and it's wrapped around super tight because I haven't really moved my spine. And that's the other thing, maybe I haven't moved because I haven't been able to. You know, maybe I have been bedbound for a little while. Everything's become a little bit stuck together, a little bit deconditioned, so I haven't been moving, okay? None of this is to say that this can't be changed, because it absolutely can, okay? So I always say wherever you are today doesn't matter. There's always something we can do. So here I am with this very tight connective tissue, and I want to reach up or reach across and grab my coffee cup, or get a cup out of the cupboard, or lift the kettle, or turn my steering wheel. So if this is really tight, can you see why, as I go to reach across the table to get my coffee cup, something could go pop? Because I've got a rib cage that's become a cage. It's not bouncy, okay? It doesn't move when I move. So I reach and something goes, oh, ow, something's popped out at the back there, yeah? So this area here wants to be able to move. If we're scared of moving, fearful of moving, because maybe we've had a lot of rib subluxations in the past, understandable. So how do we start? Okay, so we need to start with really, really gentle stuff. Okay, so I never ever, and you probably know if you've been following, you know, my YouTube channel, and I've done videos on rib subluxations before, so you might have watched them before. And the reason I wanted to do today is because my rib subluxation video is probably my most watched video of all time. So I understand that this is a really important factor for so many of us. I mean, it's only ever happened to me once. I also used to have very, very tight thoracic spine, breathing pattern disorder, very rigid. You know, I've talked about it before. I held myself for most of my life in this sort of fixed brace position, didn't know any better. But I was teaching a mat class, a Pilates class. I attempted to roll over, so where you lift your legs up and over, so you're in a kind of a U shape. And I did it without warming up. I was very stiff here, and as I went over, I just felt something pop. And it was incredibly painful. So I made sure I never do any kind of rolling over exercises unless I'm warmed up. So how do we make this lovely, soft, bouncy tissue when we're a little bit afraid, a little bit scared? How do we promote this mobility without aggravating anything. So we start slow. We start low. We certainly aren't starting with strengthening work. We're not getting hold of bands and doing strength work to prepare us. Remember, I always talk about tissue tolerance. We can't start with strength work. It never works. It will never work. Not when we're hypermobile, because we need to build the tissue tolerance. We need to feel safe. We need to feel connected. Remember I said we're a bit like Barbie dolls, maybe a bit disconnected. We don't really know what this is supposed to feel like. It's always in pain. So what I want to do today is do some very gentle movement with you to promote safety, to promote connecting, and of course we need to look at our breathing patterns, okay? So we're going to get started. Now remember, I don't know who's watching or re-watching this video, so these are just suggestions, okay? If they're not suitable for you, please don't do them. They're just ideas of mine, okay? So don't go and hurt yourself. Do what's right for you. If there's something I do that you think, no, I definitely can't do that at the moment, don't do it, okay? Listen to your body, okay? I've got a couple of toys. You can grab cushions, pillows, etc. If you'd like as well. Obviously we're going to lie on our back, so make sure you've got something for your head, so you don't want your neck feeling uncomfortable. So I'm just going to adjust this so you can see my mat, hopefully. And thank you everyone who has joined. It is really nice doing this live class. I'm having fun, so I hope you are too. I'd like to do them every month. So let me know if you'd like that. I've got lots of ideas that I'd like to share. I've got a couple of blocks for my head because we're going to do some sideline work in a minute. As I say, grab a cushion when you lie down. So here I am. I've got this rigid thoracic spine. I'm a little bit anxious, a little bit nervous. I've been injured before trying to do exercise. What am I going to do? First thing we're going to do, why do I spend so much time lying on my back with my clients and getting them to lie on their back? Because we feel safe and supported. So let's get on our back. So grab whatever you want to grab. You can do this on a bed if you're in bed. You can do this on the floor. Hopefully you can still see me. I'm just using this little yoga block. It's probably a bit too high, but you use whatever you need. You might not even need anything at all. I'm hoping you can see me. I can't see you, so I'm hoping. Okay, so again, you might be lying here, your ribs might be off the floor like this, because if you're used to bracing at the top here, you might have a big gap here, and you can get your hand under there. And that's okay. The only reason you've got that, unless you were born with a scoliosis of some kind, it's because the muscles are so tight, they're pulling your ribs up off the floor. So remember, the muscles have the ability to pull the joints out. When muscles, this is the number one thing, when muscles are tight, they will just pull, okay? So again, if my muscles are so tight because I've been bracing, they're going to pull on those ribs every time I try and move my arms, okay? So even if you're lying here and you're like, well, this is really uncomfortable, put a cushion, put a rolled up towel, something under here to make your body feel safe, like it's touching the ground, okay? If you haven't got that to hand, don't worry about it for now, you can do it later, but we're just going to work on softening this, okay? So just settle in. Wherever you are today, whatever, wherever we are, wherever we feel today, just close your eyes and just excuse the noise outside, guys, if you can hear that. There's building work next door. You might hear some banging, so just ignore it. So just close your eyes and place your hands on. Let's put one hand on those bottom ribs and one hand on our sternum, if that's comfortable. I know it's not always comfortable for people's shoulders, so do what you can. If you need to put both hands down here, that's fine. And we're just going to let gravity, I want you to feel that we're no longer fighting. So can you let gravity soften you? Remember what I said, that the rib cage doesn't want to be a cage. It needs to be soft and bouncy. And all those tissues around the ribs want to be a little bit softer, a little bit bouncier. Now I know breathing can sometimes freak people out, especially, you know, if you are, you know, anxious about this, it can make you even more anxious. So don't get too het up on the breath. That's why I'm not cueing it. What I want you to just feel is the actual weightiness of your own body. So the longer you lie here, can you feel the back of the ribs getting heavy? Can you feel your pelvis getting heavier? Can you feel your head getting heavier? And just take a moment to sense that. People often hold a lot of tension here around the diaphragm in that sort of, you know, in between the ribs here. I want you to see if you can, you know, invite that area here to soften. And remember, the ribs don't just go down into the floor, they kind of spread out as well. So imagine your ribs are getting wider as well as sort of more dense. And dense is a good word. Can you feel the density of your bones? Can you feel that sense of release as gravity takes your body into the ground? Very nice. Now just put your hands wherever you want and just very gently, it doesn't have to be big movements, just gently roll your head a little bit. Because obviously you've got muscles from your neck that come all the way down into your thoracic spine. So if I've got a stiff neck, you know, is that contributing to my rib subluxations? We don't know. It could be. So we're just going to gently mobilise the neck a little bit. Now my rule is that we try and move with the least amount of muscular effort. So it's not that we're not really doing anything. We're allowing our body to move very softly, very gently, because we're trying to make it feel safe and supported. So it's not about doing a perfect exercise, okay? It's about inviting your body to experience itself in a different way. So just let your elbows bend. Okay, again, if any of this isn't right for you, just watch, just do what you can, okay? So we said that the arms are obviously connected to the ribs, we know that. They're fed into the back of the spine. So every time I move my arms, my ribs are affected. So can I start to learn to move my arms without this sort of stiffening of those ribcage muscles? So here we are, bent arms, head nice and relaxed. Going to take a breath in. And as we exhale, feel that there's a dropping. It's a natural thing, it just happens. When we exhale, the body naturally gets heavier. It's just a thing. So as I exhale, my body gets heavier. Now that heaviness allows my arms to suddenly float up. Notice I'm going very slow. There's a reason for that. So when I get to the top, and even if I can't straighten my arms, doesn't matter, but wherever you are your ribs still feeling heavy? Or have you decided to arch your back? So can you soften? There's no right or wrong. If something happened, that's okay. Just soften back into it. Take a breath and then soften. Feel the shoulders, feel the ribs heavy as you come back down. So if you get stuck, all you have to remember is the exhale makes you feel heavier, which means you're releasing muscular tension, okay? Don't worry, oh, should I be inhaling, should I be exhaling, doesn't matter. I just want you to try and move, feeling the support, feeling the weightiness of your own body, and hopefully feeling that this doesn't have to tense up when you move your arms. You know, is this still nice and soft? So we'll do one more, we'll go up, and we'll just let those arms settle. Now we know that the sternum can be quite tight, and you know we can get a lot of issues around here, and that you know that irritation, that inflammation that comes from the sternum out. So from here, again, same idea. Everything's going to stay heavy, and we're just going to imagine that the tissue from the sternum is suddenly widening. It's not about getting to the floor. I'm not going to go to the floor. What I am going to do is notice that the back of my ribs is staying heavy. I'm going to visualize this tissue opening up. And then as I exhale, we're going to come back. we do that again. Very soft. Are you staying aware of the weightiness in the back of your body as you open your arms? If you're not, then please reduce your range of motion. And then just softly float the arms back down. Gently roll your head a little bit in case you decided to take any tension into your neck while we were doing that. Okay, very nice. So we've done a little bit of arm movement, yeah. Pelvis, obviously. Yeah, waist muscles, rib cage. This guy, the pelvis, is going to impact what goes on up here, okay? Watch what happens. When I tilt my pelvis forward, this obviously arches. My ribs are now impacted. When I tilt back, this flattens, my ribs are now impacted. So if I'm moving my legs, or I'm walking, or I'm turning, whatever I'm doing, this is impacted. So we can't just look at the ribs. Let's look at the pelvis. So let's just do some of those gentle rocks. Again, are those ribs staying fairly soft while you do it? So we don't want to see this, where everything's kind of being forced and pushed about. Let's just really slow it down. Let's just find softness in our movement. And just remember all those connections. So can you kind of get a sense now that everything is connected to everything else? We're not disjointed. We are very much connected. We just don't feel it. Okay? But we can feel it because we can build on those sensations. And that's when we can start doing strength work, but not today. Okay, so I've moved my pelvis a little bit. Now I'm just going to walk my feet out a little bit wider. Don't go too wide, especially if you've got very mobile hips. Hands can be wherever you want, out here or on your ribs. Gently roll the pelvis a little bit to the side. So now we're adding some rotation, which obviously we do a lot of times during the day. So when I gently rotate, what's happening here? Can you visualize what's happening through here? That's getting longer, isn't it? So I need space, I need softness here. And then it drops and softens. And as I come this way, this side of my body is getting longer. So if I had that TheraBand, look, if I had this stapled to the side of me now, yeah, all this stuff up here that was very, very tight is now going to have to pay out a little bit as I rotate. And then it contracts and softens as I come back. So here we are. As I move, you can see the band is having to stretch. But we're doing it so gently. You know, we're encouraging that thoracic movement from something that might have been very rigid. So we can't go mad and start forcing movement into this area. Okay, so these are very nice ways to start to promote softness and mobility in the thorax. Okay, so we're going to go on to our side. And these ones I tend to do in the morning before I even get out of bed. They're actually very nice to wake up the spine. So grab head cushions, whatever you're going to use, pillows. I'm just using these. They're not the most comfortable of things, but they will be okay. We're going to lie on our side. Again, I know that's not always easy for people. Try not to be like this, yeah, because obviously that's not putting me in a good place. Try, if you can, to put one shoulder on top of the other, but I do understand it's not always easy, okay? So, we know arms, legs are all going to impact the thorax. I'm going to put my arms like this, hopefully you can still see. So my top hand is just resting on my bottom hand on the floor or on my bed. We're going to encourage, again, some gentle rotation. So, if I wanted to slide my arm towards you, I'm not going to do it from my shoulder, even though I've got very mobile shoulders, I can easily do that, but my body hasn't moved, and that's probably part of the problem with subluxations, thinking about it, because I've got really mobile shoulders, I can reach, but this bit doesn't actually move. So if I keep reaching, what could happen? Yeah, you could see that something could potentially pop out as well if I'm tight here. So we don't want that. We don't want to be like a Barbie doll. So as we roll, if I want to reach for something, my ribs are going to start the action. So I'm going to roll forward. But can you see my ribs have moved forward a little bit now? How do I get back? My ribs roll back. Very soft, very gentle, remember. It's not about the range, as you know. I never want big ranges. It's about the softness and the quality of the movement. So how can I move my ribs very, very softly? And feel that the movement of the ribs is moving the arm. So you get a nice little massage for the ribs underneath and a bit of mobility for the ribs on top. Very nice. Come back to centre. You can just put your arms wherever you want. If it's comfortable, I like to get a bit of feedback. Just put your hand on your hip. If that's uncomfortable, obviously don't do it. Same thing with the legs, rotation of our lumbar spine. Can I slide the top leg slightly forward so I get a bit of lumbar rotation and then slide it back? So forward and back. Again, really small. You might be doing tiny things like this. Doesn't matter. You're still talking to your spine. Okay, so forward and back. Very nice. Now the other thing that's quite nice to do, again, for different options depending on your situation with your shoulders, you can put your hand here, like a sort of a salute. You could just rest your hand up here. You could put your hand over here. You could put it wherever you want. Just think while you're on your side without forcing anything. And this is quite nice because it softens this area and it just opens you up a little bit. Could you gently breathe into the top rib, or ribs here, not ribs. So again, we're improving a bit of mobility and softness, but we're not forcing it. Okay, you can put your arm wherever you want. You don't have to have it up there. But I love doing side breathing because again, it helps us get mobility. Often we're stiffer on one side, aren't we, than the other. So when we do the other side, you might find you feel totally different on this side. So let's slowly move over to the other side. I'm going to move this way so you can still see me. Take your time. Don't get dizzy getting up and swapping place. So take as long as you like. I will wait for you. So we'll just settle ourselves in. Again, just to get used to it. Maybe it feels totally different on this side. Yeah? Maybe I feel tighter already. So bringing the arms out, try and be shoulder on top of shoulder. Of course, if you're struggling lying down, this could be done seated. Okay, you can do this in a seated position. I'll show you in a minute. So if you're re-watching this. Okay, so should we try and move the ribs on this side? So remember, it's soft. I'm not pushing and I'm not pulling. It's just soft movement. And noticing that my rib cage is moving my arm. And that it has to be integrated if I want to stop having rib subluxations. All about those feelings. Can you notice that? And it doesn't matter if you're here going, no, I don't notice that at all. Next time you try it, you might. So don't worry if you're thinking, no, I don't get it, I don't get it. Doesn't matter. Do it tomorrow, do it the next day. And eventually something will go, oh, that's what you mean. Okay? Sometimes we have to be patient. Sometimes we've been in pain and discomfort for so long, we get impatient with our bodies and we want them to do things very quickly, straight away, to fix things. But the thing I've learned over these years of working on myself and with my clients is we can't rush things. We really can't. Yeah, we have to take it slow. Okay, so we've done our upper body. Let's put our hand wherever you want to put it, around your hip joint. And can you gently slide forward and back? So again, very gentle. Notice how my ribs are still moving. Yeah, they're going with me, aren't they? If I kept going, I'd end up rolling all the way onto my front. So the ribs are impacted. So we want this fluid, bouncy structure through everything. Yeah, it's not just about our rib cage because everything's connected to everything else. Okay, very nice. Come back to center. Let's put your hand wherever you want, up here, over here, whatever works. Yeah, this is quite nice. It opens this up. Whatever works for you. One hand on here, again if you can, or even here. Just, again, let's see if we can breathe up into this one. And just feel, can I actually move these ribs? So I remember when I had my pneumonias, it was always on my left side, always my left lung, 3 times. Couldn't breathe into here, couldn't breathe into my left lung because everything had just shut down. So I had to rehabilitate how to breathe on my left side. Very nice. Okay, now, again, very slowly, take your time. We're coming up. Thank you for staying with me, if you're still with me. Now, I've got a bolster here. You don't need a bolster. You could use, you don't even need anything. This was just to give you an example of if you don't like weight bearing, because we've done a lot of sort of stuff lying down, supported, very gentle things like cats. So here I'm just on my forearms if you don't like being on your wrists. And again, it doesn't even have to be a cat. It can just be any kind of gentle. Think of what we've been doing today. Notice when I move my pelvis, everything else starts to move. Can I move my pelvis up and down? Do I feel it? Do I feel the ribs moving? Or am I trying to push? Okay, so if you're someone who likes to push, what could happen there? If we're forcing this and I'm pushing into my cat, what's going to happen potentially? Yeah, if I haven't got that bouncy rib cage and I push it, we could potentially have some subluxation happening. So, how do I move without pushing? Yeah, that takes a little bit of patience. It takes that feeling. We just spent a lot of time on our back, yeah, getting to know, what do my ribs feel like? Are they heavy? Can I breathe? So now can I move them without the floor? Because obviously in real life, you're up and about, we don't lie on the floor, you know, for most of the day. We do have to get up sometimes, don't we? We do have to move, maybe as we work, we're sitting at desks, we've all got different things going on. So I do need to understand that when I haven't got the floor underneath me. So a gentle cat type movement can help us feel confident at moving our ribs softly without pressure. Now the other thing that's quite nice to do, again you can do it down here, is just kind of wag your tail from side to side. And notice what happens when I wag my tail, my ribs move. But again, I'm very gentle, I'm not doing this, I'm not forcing it. Can be up here. Can I gently promote some freedom, some softness? Okay, because your spine obviously moves in multiple directions. We don't just do this all day. We don't just flex and extend. We're twisting, we're bending, we're doing all sorts. So we want to promote lots of different types of movement for our spine. Okay, so done a little bit of cat. Final thing, again you can do this down here. You can have your hands on a chair. Again, can you just hinge backwards? So I'm getting movement around my shoulders. Belly soft. Can you let your belly hang? Soft belly. I did a video on that. If you struggle with letting your bracing go, I've got a whole video called Soft Belly. Just let your belly be soft. Let your breath flow and just move. Feel that movement. Not forcing it, very, very gentle. Good. And then come back. Now, a couple of ideas to finish off. So we're going to do a little bit of relaxation. Again, a couple of options. I'm just going to show you this. Doesn't matter, you can do this with, as I say, big pillows or a rolled up towel. Something that's quite nice to do if you can tolerate being in this position, which I know obviously not everyone can, is to have a bolster or something here and to fold yourself forward, because then your ribs are supported and you can just breathe here. So child's pose would do it as well. Now why is this nice for our rib cages? Because I'm now exposing the back of my ribs. So gravity is softening and drawing the front of my ribs into the bolster or into the pillow, and the back of my ribs get a chance to open. I get a chance to breathe into the back of my ribs. You could just do this in child's pose. You could do this over a gym ball, you know, the big balls. You could do this over a sofa, just, you know, have your body over the sofa. You could lie on your tummy and do it. Any kind of position where you are allowing the back of the ribs to open. And just letting that sternum soften and drop, feeling the shoulders melting away from the ears. So it's very nice, and you can obviously hang out there for as long as you want. Now, to finish off, we're just going to take, again, you don't need this, but if you've got some cushions, it's quite nice to put your legs over the back of something. Even you could put them on your sofa, just so that you take the weight of your legs away. And then just come and lie down and just really let your legs go. So total relaxation now. And we lay down at the beginning, and then maybe now as we lay down we feel a little bit different. Maybe our ribs soften a little bit more. Maybe everything feels a little bit heavier, a little bit quieter. So the part of the restoring the nervous system, getting rid of the anxiety about movement, is about promoting this support first, and it's about taking it slow. Really about starting to make those connections that, you know, a lot of us lose along the way, along our journeys, for various reasons. And honestly, over time, through this kind of softening work and mobility work, we can start to feel safer, we can start to let go of those bracing patterns. Now, I'll be very honest with you, you know, I spent before I started looking into movement therapy, most of my life was one big bracing pattern. You know, one big pain in this whole thoracic area because it was so locked up, you know, really. So everything is changeable. Okay, so you can obviously stay lying on your mat with your legs supported for as long as you like. I'm just going to come up to sit. So I hope you enjoyed that. I have no idea how long we've been going, but hopefully it was around half an hour. So I hope you enjoyed it. As I say, please do let me know in the comments below. As I said, I'd like to do this every month, so I'd love to see you back again. If you can join me on the first Thursday of every month at 5 o'clock UK time. Next time, we're going to be looking at the truth about stretching. So another big topic that I get asked about, stretching. So if you can join me, that would be fabulous. But until next time, stay zebra strong. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Have a good day. And thank you all, those of you who joined me. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.